Welcome viewers to the Personal Injury Law Show. My name's Tony Carbone, personal injury lawyer of 25 plus years experience. Tonight we've got a show on the Transport Accident Commission update. Next to me I've got Don Maffia,
G'day, Tony.
a transport accident specialist or expert. Is that, what's the proper terminology, Don?
Oh, look, I practice in transport accident only matters and have been for a number of years, Tony.
And also joining us as a guest tonight is Robert Paoletti, an up-and-coming superstar. How are you, Rob?
Not too bad, yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks, good.
Now, what's in the news, Tony?
Well, there's been a lot in the news, but what's been very disconcerting and disappointing is the number of children that have been getting run over in the home environment by their parents. There's been two cases I can think of, and I've got the articles here, Don, where children have been killed by their parents in these SUVs, which are four-wheel drives.
And they happened within days of each other, Tony. It was a really short time.
It just shows you either people aren't taking enough care, or what would you put it down to, Rob?
Just carelessness, perhaps, I suppose.
And also...
Well, I mean, what's interesting is both involved SUVs or four-wheel drives, and both weren't fitted with rear view cameras, and the police said that wouldn't have mattered anyway. So it just goes to show, it doesn't matter how much equipment you've got on your car, you still have to check and be very careful.
Well, the carelessness comes at two angles here. One, what are the children doing running around without any proper supervision?
Yes.
And obviously, secondly, you've got the drivers of these vehicles reversing without really having, you know, total knowledge of what's around them. Yeah. And as one of our colleagues would say, you know, the vehicle is a dangerous weapon and we've just got to treat it accordingly. So,
exactly right, Tony.
But anyway, that's the story tonight. But in the update, one of the interesting things we're going to do, and we'll go to a couple of video clips too later on. We've got one of, believe it or not, sex workers. That's one of the video clips. And what was the other one, Don?
The other one's about a person who was pushing a car and sustained injuries.
OK. Now, in the first case, which is D and Transport Accident Commission, 2010 decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. Rob, tell us a bit about the facts of this case.
Well, Tony, this is actually quite an unfortunate case. The claimant in this case was injured in a transport accident when he was about 3 years old. He was a passenger in the car. As a result of this accident, he actually sustained quite severe brain damage. And as a result of that brain damage, he had intellectual disabilities and also physical disabilities. Now, what transpired in this case is as he reached majority, as he became a mature person, it became known that his, basically his sexual function hadn't been affected by the accident. Now, the problem there was because of his physical and psychological disabilities, he wasn't able to engage in contact or any kind of expression of his sexual desires. Now, that ultimately led to inappropriate behaviours with his care workers, and even as a result of him not being able to control his arms, it led to inadvertent self-harm. So what happened in this case as part of his treatment, and he had many aspects, many facets to his treatment, but as part of it, they actually engaged the assistance of some sex workers, and they were there to basically help to allay these feelings that he'd been having.
Don, just curiously, he's got carers. And it's pretty disconcerting, I guess. You've got someone groping at you and...
Well, that's right. There was evidence actually during the trial from the carers about his inappropriate behaviour towards carers, towards women in general. The interesting thing about... Oh, no, interesting thing, D, he's in a wheelchair full-time and he requires carers 24 hours a day, but his sexual function is not impaired.
So let me get this right. He's got brain damage...
That's right.
Which, unlike a quadriplegic, he's still got functioning of various body parts.
He does, to varying degrees, but he can't control his body function. His left arm is basically useless, and the right arm still has quite a bit of strength, but he can't control its function.
He's got no... He can't control the movement.
And certainly with his intellectual disabilities, he's not capable of engaging in, relationships or anything of that kind.
His lawyers have written to the Transport Accident Commission asking...
It was actually the treaters. The treaters wrote to the TAC asking them to fund sex workers at a brothel. And the psychologist who requested it actually did some investigations and actually found a brothel that had wheelchair accessibility and it could cater for his services.
Let's get this right. What does the law say about what's appropriate treatment? What's the test?
Well, basically, under the Transport Accident Act, you can get the TAC to fund certain types of treatment, rehabilitation treatment, disability services, and that can include the conventional treatments, your general practitioner, physiotherapy.
Isn't the test you're entitled to get treatment which is reasonable and necessary?
That's correct.
Taking into account your injuries.
Well, that's
now, in this case, he's got obviously got the brain damage, which means that he can't carry on like any normal human being, but he's still got the same desires.
That's correct.
Well, the test is reasonableness but also there is services which are to help him with rehabilitation or services that are regarded as disability services. So the Act does define what they are, but there are provisions in the Act for the Transport Action to authorise a service to be a rehabilitation service or disability service. And that was the old argument that they had before the tribunal, whether or not sex workers should be authorised as a rehabilitation services under the Act.
Well, Rob, this fellow's been discriminated against, hasn't he?
In a sense, yes, because this isn't the general case where you have a normal claimant, so to speak, who wouldn't, under normal circumstances, find this kind of treatment reasonable. But in his case, I mean, it really is what might be considered an essential rehabilitation
Is it a
treatment.
stigma attached to the fact that we're going to a sex worker?
I suppose there would be. I mean, the TAC may be looking, without going into sort of depth about it, that they might feel a bit irked about funding this kind of treatment.
And Don, I'm very surprised about the behaviour or the attitude of the TAC in this case, because in a lot of instances in WorkCover, people have applied for Viagra tablets and the like, and they've been paid for in circumstances where the injuries have precluded them from engaging in normal activities.
That's right. I mean, TAC also pay for Viagra, Tony, so you would think if they're paying for Viagra, why shouldn't they pay for sex work in these circumstances? And before the tribunal, there wasn't really much evidence to do with the actual rehabilitation benefits to D, in this case, to the applicant. There wasn't much evidence put at all. There was evidence from the carers who look after him who was saying that, in fact, his attitude and his behaviour did change once he started visiting the sex workers. The psychologist gave evidence. Initially, the psychologist was opposed to the applicant attending the sex workers, but then came around and said, look, this could be beneficial to him. And that was very limited evidence put to the tribunal. And in fact, Rob, you can answer this.
Well, it was basically, Don, wasn't it a case where it was more of a policy decision by TAC not to pay it?
Well, they didn't really give their reasons. I mean, that, I suppose, is the crux of it. They hadn't done much research into the matter. It just seems as though they'd done a little bit of a consideration, and from that, they just decided not to grant it.
It seems like they just said no straight away.
Well, at VCAT, he failed to get the treatment paid for, and then it was appealed to the Supreme Court.
That's
and
right.
Although Justice Beach didn't rule it out completely, he said that there should be some further investigations carried out. Look, we've got to go to a sponsors break. After the break, we'll continue this discussion. We'll also go to that video clip. So, viewers, please don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you.